How's it going, guys? All right, so this is going to be the book review for the book titled Improve Your People Skills by Patrick King. So let's just get right into it. I will save the book rating for the end, proposals for the end. So I'll start off with the about the author and then jump in chapter by chapter, hitting the big points. Feel free to follow along with my notes in the archive or just review these at your own leisure. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. So the author, Patrick King, there really wasn't much on him. He is a social interaction specialist. So it's just pretty much just a dating online communication social skills expert based in San Francisco. He's written 11 books. He kind of writes more connection based books. So social connections, mental connections, relationship connections, and that's the type of person that he's really writing to, those who want to connect to others as well as themselves. So just jumping right into it. So this was an interesting book. Again, yeah, it was mainly based on like improving your people skills and kind of his big premise was listening. He spent a lot of time on listening and things to listen for. Spent just one chapter on actually talking, but it was a very interesting book. So chapter one is titled "Before You Open Your Mouth." So this is the first chapter, at the beginning of the chapter, and it's all about our mindsets. It's even before we interact with people, it's before we've even opened our mouths. It's just all about our mindset. And the main part in this book, in this chapter, is getting rid of the negativity in our minds. Because his big point was, um, before opening our mouths, if we have a negative thought about somebody, making assumptions about somebody, then it already kind of forms, it already creates in ourselves, this way that we view somebody. So we're going to go into the interaction with someone, and we're going to think negative about them, and they're just going to prove us right, pretty much. So his thing was, take the negative away and move it to positive thinking, so it allows them to kind of come up to our expectations. So just going into some definitions, type of stuff. He really liked empathy and reasonability. You can read them in there, but I'll just say them. That and then the Pygmalion effect. I hope I said that correctly. And this was the big one. If you have an expectation and image in your head of that person, then that's who they will become. So it's that type of thing. Who we think of someone, what we think of somebody, is what they're going to become in our minds. So that's the whole thing of getting rid of the negative and increasing the positive. So down at the end, he kind of, has this interesting quote that I just want to read over. Whatever we feel and think tends to become our reality, whether it's just a biased perspective or act in ways to make those thoughts come true. Wow, that's brutal. But pretty much, I just like that one because, in all of this myths of it, relationship talk and listening and mindset and all this, he kind of hints to thought and action right there. We create our reality based on thoughts. So I thought that was pretty cool. Jumping into chapter two. Chapter two was titled, this will come up, More Reasons to Stay Quiet. And of course, it's more about listening. It's more about just hearing what the other person has to say and not talking. So this chapter deals with, validation, invalidating your speaking partner. It summarizes the importance of remaining quiet and the benefits it allowing others to feel loved and taken seriously, because that's the main thing that people are searching for is love and that feeling of being taken seriously. So giving people the space to feel good while interacting with them is the utmost of importance. Collaboration is the goal. So validation makes others feel embraced and heard. And he goes really far in depth into validation. So before even that, he lists off the 5 levels of listening. I thought this was super interesting. So he starts off, level 1 is ignoring, which, and you can kind of figure that one out, is just flat out ignoring somebody, not even listening to them, not even pretending to listen to them, just ignoring them. So it could be caused by distraction or just not caring. And then kind of moving up to the second level is pretend listening, which is, we look like we're paying attention, but we're not actually engaged entirely. So it's a little better than ignoring, but not by a long shot. Selective listening is the third level. So it's real attention, so long as the speaker is kind of talking about something that we care about. So, we can be not paying attention, but when we hear this trigger word or whatever it is, we kind of perk up and, all right, we're active listening. We're good to go. But then it's back away when they're not talking about something else. So selective listening is the third level. Fourth level is attentive listening. So this is giving all of our attention, our complete attention to them the whole time they're talking. The only reason that this is not the top level of listening is how he put it. This level, we still are making judgments in our head. We're still kind of thinking of our reaction and our responses when they're done talking, that type of thing. So we're really not decluttering our mind when we're listening. So this is just attentive listening, which is good, but it's not great. It can get better. So that better is the fifth level, being empathetic listening. So this is giving all of our attention and putting ourselves in their shoes, not theorizing what we would do or feel in their situation, but pretty much just totally opening ourselves up to them in their world and not judging in our minds, not even thinking in our minds, just allowing them to kind of take the space. And then he goes into the steps of active listening. There's 11 of them, and I'll just briefly go over them. So there's comprehending, retaining, responding, restating, reflecting, summarizing, label emotions, probing, silence, not sermonizing, and asking, leading, and open-ended questions. So these are kind of the components of active listening. If we kind of employ some of these, then it'll help in our listening techniques and active listening. And then he goes into the steps of validation, being 6 of them. So validation again is just that way that we are making people feel embraced and heard. So we're really not trying to judge people when we're listening to them. We're just trying to validate them. We're trying to get on their level, get in their shoes, and be right there with them. Say, yeah, I understand what you're feeling. I can empathize with you. So the steps are, be present, accurate reflection, which is, trying to understand their feelings, reading behaviors and guessing what they're feeling. And the key word there is guess. Don't be like, okay, this is what you're feeling. No, it's I guess this is what you're feeling, because we don't want to, force our own ideas or whatnot, because that goes back to the judgment. That goes back to the fourth level of attentive listening instead of empathetic listening. The fourth step in validation is understanding their behavior in the context of their lives. So just kind of, again, getting in their shoes. The fifth is normalize or affirm their emotional reactions. So, you're not at fault for feeling this type of way. I understand your feelings, all these type of things. And then radical genuineness is the sixth, allowing your partner to feel loved and taken seriously. And again, that's kind of the whole purpose of this chapter, was to allow them to feel embraced, heard, loved, and taken seriously. And then, all right, and I'll just go over the tips and the proposals at the end. Going into the third chapter is titled Your Turn Finally. And this is finally when we start opening our mouths, when we start talking. And he goes into, some kind of tips and tricks of what to do, what not to do when speaking. So this chapter deals again with, talking, conversation, the importance, and what everyone is searching for when conversing is commonality. So everyone's just looking for that point that, I've done that too. I'm from there as well. That commonality, because that brings connectivity. And that's what it's all about. We're all about connecting with people. So we're all just trying to find that one place where we can connect. And he gives some stuff where it allows us to make it easier for our speaking partner to connect with us. So he lists off some questions, asking questions. And these are kind of like ask open-ended questions, which are non-binary questions, non-yes or no questions. Kind of allows them to open up, get behind assumptions. So again, from that first chapter, don't assume, get rid of the negative thought. Get rid of stereotypes, all that type of stuff. Get all sides of the story when they're telling a story, and just asking those type of questions. Ask follow-up questions. Get comfortable with dead air, and encourage your partner to come up with their own insights. And again, he gives some tips, but I'll save those for later because those are kind of like tips for templates. And number 4, chapter 4 is Read the Room, Self-Awareness. And this chapter was pretty much all about introspection and learning about yourself and being self-aware, understanding our own and people's emotions. And the emotions were super important for him in this. So, understanding others' emotions allows us to connect with them deeper. The need to keep our emotions in check is also of the utmost importance, because when we know our own emotions, we know how we feel in certain situations, then we can take preventative measures for feeling in some type of way, some type of negative way. So if I know if some A happens and I always feel B, then I know what to do when A happens so I don't feel B, if that makes sense. And then he talks about emotional intelligence, and this was interesting. So knowing and perceiving the emotions you feel and why you feel them. So again, that's that type of self-awareness thing right there. So I recognize an emotion in another book, In Your Inner Will. This was talked about a little bit, where he says, he recognized the emotion and I'm not the emotion. I have emotions, but I'm not my emotion. And not letting it take captive of you, not letting it take control of your life, those emotions. So that's emotional intelligence. And that kind of was the background, the backbone of self-awareness. It's going into the last chapter. Is just titled Reform Yourself. So this chapter was, again, just a little more extra looks at introspection and finding the flaws within us and dealing with them. There wasn't really a lot in this chapter. It was only maybe 3 pages, so there wasn't many notes taken on this. So just one thing that I underlined, bolded, captioned, everything was never give someone advice if they do not first ask for it. This one's golden, 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 golden. Never give someone advice if they do not first ask for it. So we never want to, just impose our own smarts, impose our own will on somebody if that's what they're not looking for. So if you hear somebody, and they're wrong or something like that, or you see a way that they can improve themselves, hold back a little bit, hold back. Wait for them to request that help from you and then give it. It'll be well received, much more well received, if that's how you say that. And, just go around better. So getting into the kind of proposals and tips for templates, whatnot, I had more tips than proposals. So tips I have for just kind of a general tip is the 2-second rule. So after someone is done speaking, pause for 2 seconds, contemplate what they've said, and then speak. And it'll increase your listening abilities. So I thought that one was pretty cool, the 2-second rule. Another tip for template, and this one's just kind of conversationally, is ORCA or FORD. They're 2 acronyms. So Origin, Recreation, Career, and Aspirations for ORCA, or FORD, which is kind of the same. So Family, Organization, Recreation, Dreams. They're just speaking points, things that you can take. You can just ask about their family, about their organization. You can just build your conversation on that. So that's kind of interesting. And then the last one that I had was, I was in between like a template addition or just a kind of a tip, and like adding to the energy check, or a tip for the energy check. So during every phase, we ask the question, we check our energy and ask the question why we did something. And this adds to self-awareness and learning ourselves and how it relates to our energy levels, that emotional intelligence. So every phase that we hit, we pick out some events that we've done, and we ask ourselves, okay, why did I do this? Why did I do this? What were the events that led up to this action that I did? And just kind of bringing that introspection around and that self-awareness, just building that self-awareness in us, and allowing us to improve upon ourselves, reform ourselves.